Welcome to this tutorial on creating data sets with the help of artificial intelligence AI, and then using those data sets to populate activities such as a crossword, multiple choice quiz, a challenge, and other types of activities. So let's get started with the activity maker template. We'll give our project a title. We'll call it Demo Fire Safety. I'll click OK. So now what's happening is LodeStar is converting a template activity maker into a specific project, Demo Fire Safety. It's created a folder and it'll put all of the ingredients of this project into that folder. We can then use this project to create a SCORM object that can be uploaded to a learning management system, or we could just simply take that folder and put it on the web and everything will work. Now we're given our first page, our HTML editor, page 1 of 1 here. You do need to note that in order to use OpenAI services from within LodeStar, you do have to add an AI key, so an OpenAI key. If you just simply use ChatGPT and ask for instructions on how to create a key and how to essentially fund your account, ChatGPT will give you step-by-step instructions that are current. There are often changes, and so that's what I recommend you do. Then to enter the key, just simply select Tools, select OpenAI key, and enter the key. Great. Now let's begin by creating a title graphic. I'll click on the image tool, and then the universal symbol for AI within LodeStar is this little symbol right here. We'll click on that, and I'll ask it to generate a graphic of fire safety featuring a fire extinguisher against a transparent background. We just put in a prompt here, and I'll ensure that this is checked. It helps to include transparent background in your prompt as well as check this off. Click on Generate Image. So it says communicating with OpenAI. It will take approximately 1 minute to retrieve your image. So we'll wait it out. And it produced a graphic of a fire extinguisher, but that's not really what I want. So generate a title slide with a graphic of fire safety. Let's try that. Now it produced this graphic. Let's take a look at it. I'll ensure that it's 80% of the screen. So it's done that. Now if I wanted to edit this, I could click on the graphic, click on the AI. Now our initial request returned a response ID, and essentially we can use this response ID to make edits. For example, I don't necessarily like this blank label, and I can simply say this as a prompt, and it understands the context because of the response ID that I'm sending. Now let's try that. Again, it understands now what the graphic is. And so when we say fill in a label with information, it understands the context of that based on the response ID. It generated the graphic, and it also showed us what our, what our expenditure was. So our input tokens and output tokens, and so our total number of tokens of expenditure is shown here. Let's see if we like this graphic any better. Once again, I'm just going to make that 80%. So I really do not like this label, and I could essentially go back in, and it has a new response ID, and I could use that new response ID to go ahead and edit it. I won't bother doing that for now. I'll just live with this graphic, although I really don't like that label. I'll give my page an ID. I'll call it title. Add it to the table of contents. Click plus to add a page. And now what I'd like to do is start to work on creating a data set. So we'll use the widget icon and scroll down to Dataset. And now I have a variety of properties that I want to create. So the first step in creating a data set is to define the properties of the data set. So we'll go ahead, and our first property will be fact. Materials is our second, which is, now this is consistent within LodeStar. This is basically a pagination component. So we have our fact, we have our materials. I'm going to type in environments, hit plus. Of course, I could always hit delete to remove one of the fields. Suppression, when not to use. And the source, any information that it provides. And what I can do later in my prompt is ensure that I'm restricted to specific sources. Okay, so I have six properties or fields. I'll click on the generate. So now this has created a data set, so basically a blank sheet of properties that I can use AI to fill. Let's call this fire safety. That's our ID. So this data set has an ID of fire safety that we can later refer to. I'll click on AI. And then what I can do is provide it with some information. So I'll give it a nice prompt. And what I like to do is give it a good prompt here so that I'm not going to get junk. Now my prompt says create a data set related to 20 facts about fire safety and suppression of class fires. Here's an example. So Class A fires involve ash producing or ordinary combustible materials. I'm just giving it a nice example here related to environment, suppression, when not to use, and then I'm asking it only use National Fire Protection Association and OSHA information. Now I've asked for 20 items, so I'm going to indicate that here. So we're selecting GPT 5.5 by default. We'll go ahead and click Generate Text, which will then populate these fields with 20 facts. It has now returned that information, showed us what our tokens expenditure was. And then here you can see, now you never need to mess with this anymore. This just defined the data set. This populates the data set. So here we can see a fact. Class A fires involve ordinary combustibles that can form ash and embers. And it gives us the materials, the environments, the suppression technique, use water, foam, or ABC dry chemical extinguishers, when not to use, and then it's giving us our source. So it's done that. It's giving us all these facts. There's Class B, Class C, and so forth. You can see that it's created for us 20 facts. We'll click OK. So that's now part. We have this data set. I'll go ahead and give my page an ID. I'm not going to add it to the table of contents, and I will save immediately. And the reason why you want to save is so that the ID of this data set is then available to other activities that we're going to create. Now, this data set is never seen by the student. So I'm going to essentially place it behind the wall. So I'll go back to my first page and add a page. Now I have a blank page. I'll change that to a wall. And the purpose of the wall is basically to wall off content. So the student will see this first page and then they'll hit the wall. They won't be able to venture into the page that holds the data set. But the data set will be available to us as authors. So let's go ahead and create a new page. Now what I'd like to do is add a question bank related to that data set. I'll call this page the quiz, add it to the table of contents. And then with my widget, I'll click on my widget and go down to question bank. So here is basically the form for a question bank, but I will have AI populate it. Now, before I do that, actually, I want to emphasize a really, really important step. So let me back off. I think it's really, really essential. I'll go back into the data set, the original data set. So the way I got there is just simply click on the widget and it gave me the information. A key step that I omitted is you really then need to go through each item and carefully vet the information, or provide this to a subject matter expert who will vet the information. And then, of course, if there's something that isn't right, you can delete it. You can simply delete it or edit it to make it right. So that's a key step. Once you've performed that step, then yes, by all means, use that data set because it's a vetted data set now. Once again, I'll go to my widget, click on question bank, then I'll go to that AI symbol. This time, I'm going to use that data set. Remember, we gave our data set an ID, fire safety. So now I'm going to use it. And I'll simply say build a question bank. And it'll go ahead and use this response ID to build a question bank. In other words, it'll know the context, what it's building a question bank on, because of the idea of this, the response idea of this data set. And so it's done that. And of course, we only got 5 items. We could have asked for many more. And there you go. Question: which extinguisher is typically suitable for ordinary combustibles such as wood, paper, and cloth? And that would be either water or ABC. That's based on one of the facts from our data set. And of course, this bank of questions is also given a response ID. Should you want to add, well, let's do it. I'll just say add one more item. Now I don't need to use the data set in the second call because it already has a response ID based on this question bank. So once we use this response ID, it'll understand the other questions that were already generated and simply give us one more, which we did. And now it hasn't duplicated a question because it understands what it's already given us through that response ID. I hope that makes sense. So there we go. We have our question bank. Now, I'll go ahead and preview this quickly just to show you what we have. But I think I'll change the design style to fluid. So I have a whole variety of design styles. So that'll help me stylize my project. But right now for this, I want the fluid look. So I will apply fluid to the playback of this project. So we'll go ahead and preview in the browser, and that'll bring up our player and show us our project. So far visible to the student, we'll only have 2 pages, the title page and then the question bank. There's our fluid design coming up so that it stylizes the background, the fonts, fire safety, and here it goes. Which extinguisher is typically suitable for ordinary combustibles? And we know the answer to that. Okay, and then of course all of the other questions are included, all 6 questions, which we could randomize as well. And the way to randomize is simply select randomize. So to get back in and edit this question bank, I simply click on the widget and can do my editing. Great. So let's click on the plus button. Let's add a crossword. Now for the crossword, I'm going to actually change the page type. So I'm changing it from text to crossword. Okay. And there's my little AI button. I'll click on that and I'll say use the data set fire safety. I can say build crossword. And let's do 15 items. Build crossword. Now, of course, it's going to build the crossword based on that vetted data set. And let's see how it does. Now, I'll add one more point here. So the response ID expires in 30 days. So as long as you're doing all this within a month, it understands what those response IDs. If you use a data set with an expired response ID, then the whole data set will get submitted so that the information still gets submitted. It'll still work even after 30 days, but basically what you should do is once you start generating this, create the project within 30 days. Okay, now what it's done is it's populated our form with words and hints. So words and hints. And I'll go ahead and compile the crossword. So we compile it on the authoring side, and then it'll display quickly for the student. It won't try to compile the crossword when it's first displaying it to the student. It'll compile it now, save the format, and display this particular format to the student. So it's doing its job. So we have 7 words, 8 out of 15. It's just chugging away, trying to create best fits here for the words. That's what the compiler does. Okay, we fitted 15 words, and later on when we preview, we'll see how that all worked out. Okay, add a page. Now, of course, it wants to create another crossword. So I'll change this to, let's change this to organizer. So this is something where, let's create a matching. So we'll create a 5-item matching game. Let us go ahead and click on the AI symbol here, and we'll ask it to use the dataset fire safety. I think you're getting this by now. Number of items. Well, we're going to create 10 items. So 5 will be pinned and 5 will be draggable. And I'll just say build an ordering exercise, matching exercise, sorry. We could do either an ordering thing or a matching. In this case, it makes no sense to order these items. We're asking it to build a matching exercise. We'll go ahead and generate text. Now, organizer, this particular page type can be used for a whole variety of different types of activities. The two that AI will understand immediately is ordering or matching. So now what we have is Class A fires. So in this case, this will be pinned. This label will be pinned in row 1, position 1. You can see that it's true. So AI understood how to do that because we provided, in the background, we provided the instructions for how to do this. Now the second item, this is going to be what we match to the first item, and we know it's in its correct position, so it'll be row 1, but in position 2, not position 1. So this was position 1, and this is position 2, and that way we know that. So if we drag this item to position 2, it'll be a match. It'll understand that it's a match. We'll get to that. We'll display that. Let's just create one more activity. And this time we're going to change the page type to a challenger. Now here, a challenger essentially will randomly select a situation, and then we'll select items, and our selection will be deemed correct or judged correct if the prerequisite situation existed. So that none of that, I'm sure, made sense, but AI understands how to do this, and then we'll see what it actually produces, and that'll help me explain what this really is all about. I'll click, um, I'll say, here I'll just say 20 items, use dataset, fire safety. Let's just say build a challenge. We'll generate text. It is now filled in these fields. So let's take a look at what it did. So here it's created a title, so something that we can read. Ordinary combustibles are burning. So this is the situation. It has created a category called situation and randomly chosen. So this essentially means this will be a random state. So this will be randomly chosen. For if I show another example, here is flammable liquids. So the first situation was ordinary combustibles. The second situation is flammable liquid. Now, one of these will be displayed because it's a random state. It's randomly chosen. And then here is a situation of energized electrical equipment, combustible metal, cooking oil, and then this is fire is small. So there's different situations here. Now it's created a second category called select suppression method. So use water to cool the burning material. Well, that is only correct if ordinary combustibles are burning was the situation. So these items are correct or incorrect based on the situation. And so here you have one set of situations, and here is another set of situations. So basically, this is one set of conditions and this is a second set of conditions. So it could be ordinary combustibles are burning or something else. So great. We've got all that. We could go ahead and manually put in an icon to match this. Now, in addition, it is assigned points. It's told us the condition correct if dependency exists. So this is correct. So this could be always correct, never correct, correct only if the dependency exists. And then it gives us our resource, and then feedback. It's filled in the feedback for all of this. So we'll call this the challenge. We'll add that to our table of contents. So we're ready just to go ahead and preview in the browser. So we start off with our main title screen. Optionally, if we wanted to navigate through a table of contents, we have that. I'll put that away and just navigate from page to page. And we have our question bank. So what type of fire involves energized electrical equipment? So let's try class C. We got that right. We go on to the next item. According to OSHA guidance, what extinguisher type is intended for combustible fires? Well, let's try a dry powder. And the next one I'm going to purposely get wrong. What extinguisher is typically suitable for ordinary combustibles? Well, that's water, but let's just try something incorrect and see what happens. So here we get the indication for what the right answer is and some feedback, which was AI generated. In the next activity, we have a crossword. So let's see what we get here. If we click, we can see our hint, pull, aim, squeeze. Well, that is the PASS acronym. And let's see, that kind of helps us with the next item, workplace safety. Well, that's an obvious one, OSHA. And then let me just to show you what happens, let me answer one incorrectly. So we have cools class A. Well, that's water, but let's, I'll put an X here. So this is partially correct. Once we submit, and this is particularly useful for students with disabilities, with visual disabilities, because the screen reader will read all of these out. But here we can see that, we've left a lot blank, but we've partially completed the hint cooking oil fire, and you can see further down we've correctly done pass and OSHA and partially water. And we can also, if we're uh, if we're able to discern these colors, we can see also that this is red, incomplete or incorrect, and then green. But you get, we can tell both by the feedback and by the colors. So we have some redundancy there in terms of feedback. On the next page, we have the matching. So here, use foam. So we have use water, dry chemical, that's class A. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Use a wet chemical extinguisher for class, and then the others I'm kind of guessing at. So I'm guessing class B electrical fires, so something non-conductive. Let's see how we did. And then we submit. And we got these two mixed up. So we got partially right. And then here, this is interesting because this is the challenge. A randomly chosen situation. So energized electrical equipment is involved. So now we select the suppression method for that. Let's try a non-conductive extinguishing agent. Avoid an unsafe action. We can look at control hazards. De-energize equipment if it can be done safely, and so forth. Let's just we have various decisions that we can make based on the situation which was randomly chosen. And then once we've looked at all of the categories, then the submit button appears. We can go ahead and click on the submit button. So we've achieved 6 out of 9. We correctly selected use a non-conductive extinguishing agent. You correctly de-energized the equipment, but we incorrectly omitted choose an extinguisher with the matching class marking. So that's why we didn't get a perfect score. That concludes our look at using data sets. So generating a data set that helps inform all of our different types of activities, which in this case included a quiz, crossword, organizer, challenger. So thanks so much for watching.